it fills my heart to know that, okay, I'm not a mom, but I'm still the aunt, and I'm still pouring into these children, and I'm still loving on them, and ultimately being a sister to my friends who have children. And it drives me bananas how society wants to pit child-free women against women with children. We could all just come together and support each other. If women with children could support their child-free friends and be like, look, whether you chose this lifestyle or not, I got your back, girl. Like, your life is still going to be beautiful. Women would rule the world.
This is your official invitation to the Pasta Night Club.
We're Michelle
and Ashley,
the female co-founder duo of the Pasta Night Couples Journal Set. We interview couples who are just trying their best.
Let's get into the dirty stuff.
Yeah. Asking the real, hard, sometimes uncomfortable questions we all really want to know.
Oh,
or
you guys are having
like,
sex every day?
Yeah.
Welcome to Love and Pasta.
By the way, have you been watching Love is Blind?
Yes, I'm obsessed with Love is Blind. And only because I was traveling this week did I not binge the entire thing. So I want to touch on it, but I also don't tell me everything. So the thing that has really gotten me is that this season should be called The Ick. They're all saying it. Literally, Chris was like, is this a new thing that I've never heard of? And I told him, I was like, no, this has been around. I don't know why
it has been around. But I do think it's trending, though. Like, people are talking more and more about the ick, and it's almost becoming like a cool thing to be like, oh, I got the ick, you know?
Okay, so for those people that don't know what the ick is, it is that sudden feeling of just straight up repulsion. Or just like a loss of attraction. And typically I feel like it comes from something minor, but the bigger deal is that you can't shake it.
Yeah.
Do you have an ick?
Yeah, I think we all have icks. I'm trying to think of a specific moment. Wait, you go first. Do you have a specific moment that you've gotten an ick from someone?
You know how when you go to a restaurant and people are not nice to the staff?
Oh my God. Yes.
That is the ickiest thing to me.
I hate that.
I hate that. And it makes you just want to crawl under the table.
No.
And I've worked those jobs before. I've been there. And
that's
always
a red flag too, though. That's an ick and a no.
There's a bigger conversation to be had there for sure.
Definitely. But what about small things? I'm trying to think of, I don't know, people get icks for weird walkers or
Yeah, weird walkers. Or what about
running with a backpack? I've heard that one.
What about guys that sit with their legs crossed?
Yeah. Okay, but I will say, I think that people are it's kind of trending, this ick thing, and I do feel like people are losing out on really good matches because they're like, ew, no, this person was walking weird, and then you're like, bye. But then why not give it another shot? So I would say to people, sometimes, and actually this is another conversation, do you think you can get over an ick?
So I'm curious to see what happens because so many of the couples on Love is Blind specifically talked about the ick. So Steven and Monica, the guy with the reddish hair.
Yeah.
I feel like her ick from him is he doesn't have money. I feel like that's where she's going with it. The last
but also that he talks a lot, right? He's really, really chatty.
So did you see? He was like, I don't really buy Christmas gifts. He was getting you something extravagant, like a Kate Spade bag. And she was like, do not buy me a Kate Spade bag. And then he was like, Louis Vuitton. And he was like, is that a brand? I was like, oh, no. Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Wait, she also kept talking about flowers. That was so...
Yes. And then I actually saw a really funny Instagram the other day of this girl, and she's like, I'm arranging the flowers that my boyfriend got me. And it's her sitting in front of an empty vase, and she's cutting with fake scissors.
Wait, that's hilarious. That's
really
so good.
That's a good way to drop him a hint, though.
A little passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive happens to the best of us. The other one that was talking about the ick was Taylor and Garrett, which I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah, I love them as a couple too. I feel like that was such a perfect match. They're both very smart and just I love them. I
She
think they're
mentions the ick a lot, and I hope that she's not looking for an ick.
That's what I feel like with him. I feel like she's almost self-sabotaging in a way. It's like this really good romance, and she's almost looking for something to be wrong.
I hate that. That makes me sad. That makes me sad for her because I think that this relationship could be really good for her.
So good, yeah.
And then, so the big ick moment.
Oh my gosh.
You saw it, right?
Yeah.
Hannah, Nick, I don't know.
Okay, wait, what did you think of that? Because I definitely had opinions on that moment. So I guess, okay, explain what happened. It was Hannah, yeah.
So there's this like row of ducks, but they're like static ducks. They don't even have wheels on them or something. So I was like, how is he going to get on it? Yeah. And then he's like, I'm going to go ride that duck. And she says right away, she says to him, I do not want you to get on the duck. It will give me the ick.
Yeah.
But she tells him, and he does not give a.
He does it anyway.
Diamond necklace and all, riding the duck. But then I feel like the real thing that she freaked out about, which I think that this begs two different conversations. One is that she really gets mad when this other woman comes up. And when that other woman comes up to ride the duck next to him, he's open about it. But she's also like, the woman that came was like much older.
Yeah.
It felt so weird, right? That she was getting mad. Like, that woman is like 30 years your senior. Are you upset that your boyfriend with the diamond necklace on the duck is riding next to her? Is that really like the big thing?
Okay, here was my thought on it, and it might be controversial. I don't know what people's stance on this is, but I actually think he was just trying to be goofy and silly and lighten the mood a little bit. And he's like, I'm gonna do it. And I understand her being, that's fucking weird, and you're gonna give me an ick. I get that, but also I think he's trying to be playful and get his goofy side out. And it's not that big of a deal. It's silly. You can be kind of in the moment in those situations, and I don't know. So I don't think that what he did was necessarily wrong. I think he was just trying to be silly and have fun.
It did make me feel a little bit icky about it, though.
What?
Okay, so it's hard. Like the duck, it's like, I don't know what it is, if it's like plastic or stone or whatever. Yeah. But the way that he was riding it, because it didn't have wheels or anything on it, he's ramming it. You know what I mean? And all I could think is like, what about his peen? Yeah. Like maybe that's why she was icked out, was because she was like, either you're smashing your peen or
smashing it.
Or it's just like not there. Right? What do you feel? I was like, how is that possible that he's doing that? But then I feel like the real ick moment came from the fact that he was talking to that woman. And the next thing in my head was, I always kind of felt like once she saw him, she wasn't into him. And she's made comments about she thinks that he like misrepresented himself.
Oh, yeah.
Which, to be fair, I feel like she made some comments, though, that could have misrepresented her.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you shouldn't, on the show, you shouldn't even talk
You should just stay true to what the show is supposed to be. Stop trying to drop hints about what you look like. Love is blind. That's the name of the show. Stop.
Totally agree.
So then the next piece, though, is that this list that she leaves on the nightstand, which I feel like all of those reasons that she gave that she potentially doesn't want to be with him, I feel like just saying that you got the ick, is that really just you trying to be like, I don't want to be in this relationship?
She's trying to give herself a way out almost.
Yeah. Is people saying that they have an ick, is it really just that they have reasons that they don't want to be together, but they're not communicating about it, or they're not openly speaking about it? All I could think of was, instead of leaving those bullet points out for him to see, she should have put them in her pasta night journal and then thought about them and then presented it to him in a way that felt like nicer or
communicating about it. It's so passive aggressive to just leave a note out like that and not even talk about it. Like, I think it makes sense for her to write down her feelings in the journal, in our pasta night journal, write down her feelings. That way she understands what she's feeling, how she's feeling it, and how she wants to communicate it. Because that poor guy just sees this list and he's like, okay.
It felt like mean.
It felt mean. And I think she is a little mean. Her personality is just like very teasing, very critique.
She is a little bit mean.
She critiques a lot. And a lot of people do that, and you don't mean that much by it. At least you don't think. You're like, teasing in a kind of critiquing way, and I don't think it goes over very well, and I don't think it's a positive thing for the relationship. Oh my gosh, I just remembered actually. So I did have an ick once, but I was so young that I think this happens when you're like in middle school or high school where you're like, oh, and then you break up and it's like little relationships like that. But I do remember so specifically, and I will forever feel bad about this whole situation. Oh my God. Okay, I was dating this guy. And I mean, I was middle school, we were super young. So whatever dating at that time means, but I was dating this boy. I break up with him. I don't know why. And then one of my good friends at the time was like, oh, I like him. Can I date him? And at the time I was like, okay, like, yeah, that's fine. I don't really care. And then they start dating. And then I think I start caring. I'm like, okay, maybe I do like him still. And I start kind of freaking out. And so we start talking again, the boy and me, even though he's dating my friend. I know, so mean. I would never do this. I felt so bad. Okay, so we start talking and then
hide your men from Michelle, people.
I know, oh my gosh. No, but then I was like, okay, I like you. I do like you. And he breaks up with my friend and then I asked her, I talked to her actually. I was like, I actually do like I like was open to her about it. I was like, listen, I'm so sorry, but like I do still have.
This is very on brand for your indecisive personality.
I know, I am.
This isn't your fault. This is just like natural. Like, you didn't mean it mean.
I am indecisive, yeah. So this is a good example of that. And so I start talking to him again, and she's like, oh yeah, that's fine. We broke up. It's middle school. We all get over relationships so quickly. And so she's like, yeah, that's fine. So this guy and I, oh my God, I almost said his name, but not that he's going to listen, but if he did, he would know who he is. And so we start dating again. Then I think I'd had like one other kiss beforehand. Like we never kissed.
Oh.
So after school one day, he gives me a kiss and it was slobbery. And I was like, what was that? I did not like the kiss. No. And so I literally broke up with him, I think the next day.
But that might be like, you made the right decision.
Yeah, but I don't know. But clearly I was in middle school. It was such a different time. And hopefully people mature after that and can get over something. But yeah, that was the one time where I'm like, I got the ick and just ended it right there.
Well, I'm really excited to see what happens on Love is Blind. Let's see if they can get over the ick or not.
Yeah, let's see.
You know, Michelle, just like relationships, furniture tells a story, and sometimes it needs a little love to keep that story going.
Exactly. And that's where Once Upon Upholstery comes in. They're all about restoring the beauty in what matters most. Whether it's your favorite couch or a cherished family heirloom, they've got you covered.
Yeah, Chris and I actually used them to redo our restoration hardware cloud couch after it got completely ruined during our move from Austin to Miami, and they did an amazing job.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. It's such a good example. Just like couples grow and evolve, so do the pieces that fill your home. Once Upon Upholstery's skilled artisans breathe new life into your furniture, creating spaces that are as timeless as your love story.
So if your furniture needs a fresh start, like your relationship sometimes does, head to onceuponupholstery.com.
And don't forget to follow them on Instagram at Once Upon Upholstery for some major home inspiration.
We finally have Michelle back in America, which is a big win.
I'm back in Austin.
We're super excited, and fall is officially kicking off, and we are so, so thrilled to have today Marie and Chris on the pod with us to talk about their really beautiful story. Michelle, do you want to weigh in with anything?
No, I'm happy to be back and super excited to be talking to Marie and Chris. I think we should just get straight into it.
Okay, awesome. So Marie and Chris, you guys are in Miami, Florida. Really neighbors really to me here. So love a fellow South Floridian being on the pod. And you guys have a really, really cool story. Not only a huge congratulations is owed for being married for now 13 years, which is a massive feat in and of itself, but what's really more interesting to me is that you guys have been dating since you were 14 years old. So fast forward now to being in your mid to late 30s. Tell us a little bit about how your relationship journey happened. How did you guys meet, and how did you fast forward to married for 13 years?
Do you want your version or mine? Because there's two.
Okay, well, we met Baptist Hospital doing volunteer hours, which are a requirement in high school to be able to graduate. His version of the story is that
Truth.
I saw him, fell in love, hit on him, and then he got suckered into a relationship with me. But really, I just saw a cute guy and wanted to introduce myself, and sort of blossomed from there. I mean, we started dating, and we didn't go to the same high school, so perhaps that helped in that we were not in that sort of that constant high school drama.
I don't think we would have crossed paths if we didn't meet in Baptist.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, no, because I went to Coral Reef Senior High and he was at Sunset. And I don't know, it was just like, I don't want to say it was like love at first sight because that just sounds so cheesy and corny, but we just sort of like grew up together, grew up around each other, always with the notion of like, okay, this is my partner.
What was your first date?
Oh, we went to a football game, a high school football game, and now I'm a football wife, so go figure.
When did you guys know that you would get married?
Oh, well, I was getting ready for prom, and I told my mom, I'm gonna marry this guy, and my mom was like, I love this for you, and let's see what happens, right? I mean, same thing happened at my quinceañera, which is like a sweet 16 for Hispanics. At my quinceañera, I told my mom I'm gonna go to prom with that guy, and she was like, I love, this is great, and I really hope that happens. And then it ended up happening. I took him to prom, and then at prom, I told my mom I was gonna marry him. And then the day we got married, my mom was like, okay, yeah, I know. You guys are gonna die holding hands and be together forever.
Chris, when did you know?
When did I know? The funny thing is I was the one that was pushing to get married because she really wasn't fully sold on the idea yet. But let me see, we got married at 25, so probably like around 22, 23 years old, I was just like, yeah, I think I'm going to keep this one around.
Oh, I love that. You guys shared with us that, especially Marie, I know that you sort of have a unique vantage point on marriage, and especially with that story, right? Everyone's dream is that you get married and it's this forever, happy ever after fairy tale, right? Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on a marriage and sort of how do you guys approach keeping the spark alive?
Being married is hard. You're two different people, completely different way of thinking, under one roof, trying to make everything work, right? For everything to be cohesive. And it's just not feasible that it's going to be like that all the time. There's going to be misunderstandings and miscommunications and arguments over silly things like a can of Goya black beans. True story. So it's not a fairy tale. And I wish I could be one of those girls that just thinks like everything is romantic and fairy tale like, but I'm too much of a realist, I think, and also just a tad sarcastic. So my point of view is, yeah, as long as you're both sold and you're both willing to put in the work, yeah, it'll work, but it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be a fairy tale setting. And I think what you were referring to earlier in my like unique vantage point is that for me, it's mind-boggling that you apply for a marriage license and it's a one and done. It's like, hey, congratulations, you're married now. Good luck for the rest of your life until you die. But every other license, you have to prove that you're competent to hold it. And then you have to renew it every so often. And a part of me really wishes that marriage licenses were that way. Like every 5 or 10 years, you sit down and you assess, hey, are you happy? Are we working towards the same goals? Are we still aligned? And if yes, great, we renew. And if not, okay, well, you know what? Thank you so much for the last 5 or 10 years. This was wonderful, but now it's time to move on. So I don't know. I just think it's very odd how marriage licenses work, but every other license, you're like, you have to prove you can see to get a driver's license, but marriage license, one and done.
I think it's so interesting. I feel like when you brought this up, when we originally talked, I was like, oh my God, I've never thought of it like that. And it totally makes sense. I mean, you think of things like my real estate license, like the preparation that you do, also the courses that are available, the classes, what the state wants you to do before you go into that. And then you think about it, I mean, anyone can go and get their marriage license. You're not, to your point, you're not proving competence, or are you really in this to win it? And I mean, it makes me wonder, is there an opportunity to bring down that divorce rate and in certain instances if we require that sort of commitment from people going for that
Well,
license.
so you guys have actually been married for 13 years and been together for longer. So have you guys put into practice kind of what you're saying? Is there something you guys are doing to kind of reflect on your relationship every 5, 10 years and see, oh, is this actually working?
No, yeah, we do assess. How are you feeling? Are you happy? Is this still where you want to be? Especially like, are we working towards the same goals together? Because you do change. We've been together for 23 years. We are not the same people that we were when we started dating. We're not even the same people we were a year ago since we started our health journeys. You're constantly evolving. And I think you need to leave space or create room for not only for those evolving to happen, but also how that works into the dynamic of your relationship, and if you both feel again aligned in how you're evolving, because he could easily pick up interests that are of no interest to me, but maybe it's not detrimental to the foundation of our relationship. But if tomorrow he decides he wants to become a tornado chaser, and yeah, I'm not going to go chase tornadoes, sir. I don't even like being outside when it's raining. So I think it's important, yeah, to assess. And to answer the other part of your question, how do you keep the spark going? I think, like, honestly, that commitment to falling in love with each version that we evolve into keeps the spark alive, because again, there's change. It's something new. You're learning now about their new interests or what their new thoughts are. They're bringing a different perspective to the table. Like, even when food preferences have changed, it's like, oh, okay, I got to learn how to eat Indian food or sushi now. So I think that keeps the spark going for sure. But there is no magic pill to having a successful relationship.
I think a bit what you're saying too is just from what I've read, and I think what works for me too is just staying curious with the other person, because like you're saying, you're always evolving. Like, we're always changing. Our interests are changing. So many things change in our life. So it's just about committing to stay curious about one another and asking each other questions to always know each other through those changes and understand what's going on. So I really, yeah, I love your answer to that too, and what works for you guys.
To really like add layers to that, it definitely helps when you give each other space and then you get to grow it as an individual, and then you learn new things that you like about yourself and things that you don't like about yourself, because the truth is that with growth you also leave things behind, and then this kind of gives the opportunity to double back and show new habits and new favorite things that you discovered and share with my wife. For example, a few years ago, a very good friend of mine wanted to do like a bachelor party. And it's not like your typical nightclub, go party. This no, he's like, hey, listen, we're gonna go to Colorado, we're gonna do some hikes, kind of go outdoors, and he was inviting me. I said, okay, I'll go. It was with a group of guys I really wasn't friends with. They were his circle of friends. But that exposure of just like being out in nature and going on trails, we went to Red Rock Amphitheater,
Oh,
just
beautiful.
hang out in Colorado. It really sparked something in me. And I'm just like, this is really cool. Like, I want to see more. And this was probably like 5, 6 years ago. And ever since then, every year I go to national parks, I go on hiking trips, I go trying to just more of an outdoorsman type. I never really thought I was going to be that. I was born in Hialeah. I'm a Miami kid, and now I'm in Glacier Lake, or was it Glacier National Park in Montana, just hanging around, having a good time. And it's really cool because it just gives you a different perspective. And now, next week, someone's getting dragged out to Northern California to go do some hiking.
Oh, wow.
Nothing to humble you like having to climb at a 30% incline up a mountain.
But Marie, you're not that into hiking, right?
No.
Oh,
My idea of a vacation is a spa and shopping. His idea of vacation is like climbing mountains or hiking or like being out in nature, and I'm like, where's the bug spray? How much sunscreen did we bring, and how long is this going to take?
I love that you guys do have these different interests, because I feel like relationships now, there's so many people that go into it and they're like, oh, she doesn't hike or he doesn't hike, whatever. This will never work because we don't share that interest. But I feel like a lot of times it's okay to have different interests, and you guys introduce that to each other, or just have separate friends that you can do that with. You don't have to agree on everything and like everything together. And I think that's such a good example that you grew that interest. And Marie, it's not your favorite, but you're still supportive of him.
No, and I'll go, like for his birthday, I'll go, but then he does have his boys trip that he does once a year. And I think I look forward to it more than he does, because it's like he goes away for a week and goes to do the things that fill his cup, like being out in nature and reflecting and being with his own thoughts. And then I in turn can do things that pour into my cup. And I do think that this is another sort of topic where I do sort of deviate away from the thought pattern that most people have in relationships. Is that I don't believe we need to be together 24/7. I think it's perfectly healthy for us to spend time apart. I'm not saying like months at a time or anything like that, but a vacation, a staycation, a work retreat, a women's empowerment retreat, something like that. I think it's important to give each other space to just be able to be ourselves, because we were two whole people before we came into this relationship. And we're going to continue being those two whole people even as we share our lives together. Where this isn't like he's the half and I'm the other half. No, I mean, like, he's Chris and I'm Marie, and together we make this really, really beautiful thing, but we're still individuals with individual interests. So like you said, yeah, it's totally okay to have different interests. Just create space to sometimes be curious to hear about it, and also create space for, hey, okay, go play golf. I do not want to go play golf, but by all means, please go and have a great time being scorched in the Miami sun.
I also love how you guys, I mean, started from such a young age that you don't really know yourself, right? You're one person at 15 and you go through so much changes. I mean, even your brain changes. So you're able to rationalize things in a different way, and your interests change, and so much changes that you guys are going through that whole process together. Where I think my relationship, I started dating my now husband at like 30, I think, or 31. And I was like, okay, I know who I am now. I mean, you're still going to be changing, but I had my time being single and being on my own and just learning a lot on my own, and felt like, okay, now I'm ready because I know who I am. But you guys stuck with it from the beginning and had that whole process together and support each other through that. And I think that's something really hard. So I congratulate you guys for going through that. And it's really amazing to see.
But you do also blink your eyes and 2 decades go by. I mean, to me, it's still mind boggling. I see pictures of us and I'm like, oh, is that what I looked like pre-Botox? No, but like, yeah, like you said, it is special. And we've been pretty committed to growing up together.
I'm never growing up.
I agree with you. You are never growing up, but that commitment to, okay, I'm going to evolve, I'm going to grow, I'm going to be a better person, but I'm going to do it with you because we're happy.
Yeah.
We want to be here.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's been cool too, because while you guys, I agree with Michelle, it's really impressive that you've been able to give each other that space to grow as humans, even though you've been together for so long. I think that's really stand out. I think that you would expect that if you've been in a relationship for so long, you sort of treat them as like a crutch. And it's clear that you guys haven't done that. Instead, you've been able to empower each other to grow in your own ways, which is really admirable. But it also feels like you guys have found some things to come together over.
Okay, when I started our pasta night tradition, I never realized how much it would impact our relationship for the better. I've never been super into journaling, to be honest, but designing the pasta night journal has given us a way to follow our progress.
It's the same with me and Chris. Honestly, it was really hard for us to find intentional time to connect with each other, but the Pasta Night journal set finally gave us that space to do so. And it's also made us better communicators in our relationship.
Right? It's such a simple yet meaningful way to keep the communication flowing. It's for couples who want to dive deeper into their connection, but in a fun, relaxed way over dinner and maybe some pasta.
Exactly. It's not about waiting for the right moment. It's about creating it. Imagine a cozy night in, a great pasta dish, and some thoughtful prompts to get you talking about the things that really matter.
Not to mention, it's like a mini date night in a box. You can even make it a monthly tradition like we do. It's such a great way to reflect and grow together.
And the best part, just like us, you don't have to be a relationship expert. It's designed to be lighthearted yet meaningful, with prompts that help guide deeper conversations.
So if you're looking for something to spark more connection in your relationship, this is it. It's our favorite way to keep the love and the conversation going.
Head over to pastanightclub.com to grab your Pasta Night journal set and bring more intentional love into your relationship. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Pasta Night Club for more date night inspiration and relationship tips.
We can't wait to see you there.
You guys have gone on a really interesting journey and lost quite a bit of weight together, which is really hard. And that comes into a lot of different habits that play into every day. Can you guys tell us a little bit about what that's been like?
Do you want to go first?
He's like, I haven't eaten and
It's breakfast.
We're hungry.
But no, it's just going back a little into what you were talking about in being in a relationship at such a young age. It's just you have to be humble enough to know that there's some hard truths out there that some people don't want to acknowledge. And that when someone that you're committed with, that you're in a relationship with, is telling you things that you don't like, you have a choice to make on how you react to that. And it took a while for me to understand that when someone is challenging you to better yourself, it's not an attack. It's actually like an act of love, because if you have a circle of friends and you stay within your comfort zone and being sediment is okay with them, then that's not really people that have your best interest at heart. After so many years of working in the restaurant industry, I've always been around amazing food and breads and coffees. That kind of just snowballed into me not really taking care of myself.
Mhm.
And I just got to this insane weight. I think at my heaviest, I was at 267 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and this is working on my feet and always being active. I've never really had a desk job or anything. So it was just, I didn't necessarily have the healthiest relationship with food. And it just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm no longer want to deal with this. I deal with snoring and knee pains, not only from being overweight, but injuries from the past that caused some discomfort. I decided that, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And I decided to start an Instagram page to hold myself more towards the accountability side, but also to share the journey, because I know, I look around and I'm like, I see men my age. I turn 38 next week, and I'm like, I don't want to be one of those uncles or brothers that can't keep up with his nephews or can't play any sports. I'm like, it has to have a purpose, right? I didn't want to just lose weight because, I want to look a certain way. I want to feel a certain way. I want to be able to, when I was going on these hikes, I was like the last man getting up there. Like, it's a 3-hour hike, and I would get to the end of the trail, but it would be winded, it would be tired. So once I made that determination, like, okay, I need to get into the gym, and that habit started forming, then I started realizing how it can change the dynamic in the house. Because before it would be okay, like, let's go have pancakes at IHOP, or let's go have bacon, or let's go to this new brunch place and drink. There's sugar in everything. And then when you sit back and you realize, like, okay, I'm doing all this work in the physical part of showing up at the gym and lifting the weights and going on the walks and runs, but I'm still eating like everything's the same. And things didn't really like change until Marie saw, listen, Chris, you're doing all this effort, but until you get your nutrition down, all that effort goes wayside. So once she started really like owning the food, I call her the food and beverage director of the house. I was like, what? She does all the grocery shop. And to be honest, like, she has one of the biggest sweet tooth I've ever witnessed.
Oh my God, I'm guilty.
And then I have no willpower. You have peanut M&Ms near me, I'm gonna get them. I'm not gonna ask. I'm gonna grab. Let me grab a couple. And the fact that she's like, okay, this is what's entering our house, and she went through our cabins and everything, just started tossing a lot of food, and good food, like things
Not
like
the M&Ms.
No. It's funny now. She bought me like a little bag of M&Ms, and she goes, "Here you go, Chris." She's like, "Yeah, I ate it like a savage." I'm like, "Oh my God!"
No, now it's the Atkins protein M&Ms. So he started his working out journey back in January. I sort of went the opposite route. and I know we'll talk a little bit about this later in your questions, but I am dealing with infertility. I am dealing with PCOS and premature ovarian failure, and that caused my hormones to just go bananas, and I gained a lot of weight myself. My heaviest, I was at 224, and I decided to address the mental health aspect of it first. So from January through March, I was in group therapy. We did an 8-week healing journey. I was doing bi-weekly therapy in between that because I'm a firm believer, like, it doesn't matter how great you eat or how hard you work out. If you are hurting inside, you will never be healthy. Don't come at me on this. If you're hurting, if you have shame or resentment or guilt like I did, listen, the body keeps the score. There's a whole book that's literally what it's called. The body keeps the score. Everything in that book tells you, like, all of the pains that you go through, the resentment, the depression, your body holds on to that. And until you let those things go, it's like you're basically in a prison. So I dealt with the mental health aspect while his gym revved up. And so we met sort of in the middle at the point where I was like, okay, I feel I'm in a really good place mental health wise. I'm accepting of my condition, of this situation, and I want to move forward. And so when we met in the middle there, I was like, okay, food. It's 80% food and 20% gym. I have pretty good discipline in that sense. Like he said, I had a huge sweet tooth, and I was definitely one of those people who, I had a bad day, I'm going to have a tres leches. I had a good day, I'm going to have ice cream. Now it's been like completely retraining the brain in that reward system. And yeah, I completely overhauled everybody's diet in this house. Like even the cat and dog are on a diet. No, and I truly do love cooking. So that was really helpful. But it's been great doing this together because we've both lost over 30 pounds so far. Still got some more to go here. And we're like rooting each other on. And he steps on the scale and he's like, oh, I'm below 230. And I'm like, you sexy man. Woo! It's really nice, that support system, and doing this together. We're doing it together, although we did it very differently. He did it in a way that aligned with him, and I did it absolutely in the way that aligned with me.
Well, it seems true to your guys' relationship, right? You've stayed true to letting each other do things in your own time, but being there for each other, which is really cool. Chris, it's interesting. One of the things that you brought up, we actually just covered on our Instagram or on our social channels. We posted this thing about, everyone's always talking about what are red flags that you see in other people, right? But there can be red flags in yourself, or things that you're doing that are self-sabotaging your relationship without even knowing it, right? And one of those things is being defensive. And I think that you really hit it on the head where you called out, Chris, that it seemed like you were in a place where you had the opportunity to either be super defensive and keep going down the path that you were, or you had an opportunity to admit that maybe there were some things that you could be doing differently. And the fact that you guys were able to come together over that is really, really interesting and impressive. I think based on that, so going into sort of our next topic, I think that Marie, you already sort of hit on it. So Marie, being diagnosed with premature ovarian failure must have been a life-altering moment. Most definitely for you, Marie, but probably for both of you. How did you, Marie, initially cope with that diagnosis? And Chris, how did you cope in your own way while also still being supportive? What did that look like for you guys?
And can you, for people that might not know, can you just explain what that diagnosis is?
Sure. We were in our late 20s and raised Catholic, Hispanic. You get married and you have kids. That's the gig. That's the expectation. And so we were trying, not using protection, trying to get pregnant, and it just wasn't happening. And then at 31, my period stopped. So I thought, okay, maybe I should go to the doctor. And I went to the doctor, and initially they told me that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome and that it can cause irregular periods, and that I should try to lose weight and come back when I was ready for IVF. And there's nothing wrong with IVF, and I'm very supportive of my friends who choose to go that route. But I was like, no, I at least want to try to see if we can. So I followed the doctor's instructions, went on birth control to see if we could kickstart my period again. A year went by and it never came back. So they just went ahead and diagnosed me with early menopause, which for me was devastating because you're not expecting at 31, at 32 to hear you're in menopause, your window has closed. And so all of a sudden, that dream, that expectation of what life was going to look like is completely shattered. And I did feel completely shattered. And then dealing too with the downfall from that. I would never want to call out or hurt anybody in any one of our circles, but some of our family members still to this day will make comments about like, when are we going to have children, or when the children are coming. And even friends not really knowing like what would be supportive to say would make comments that would end up hurting me. And I at first didn't cope well, right? I mean, I cried and I just felt depressed, and like, if I couldn't do the one thing that I was literally created to do, right, which is to be a woman and reproduce, then who even am I? And what do I bring to the table? And hearing comments like, oh, a marriage without children is a marriage that is fruitless. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, what are you saying about this relationship that we've been cultivating since we were so young? Are you saying that nothing will be born of this or birthed of this just because a physical child isn't going to come out of it? And I refuse to believe that. I think we bring a lot of joy to our circle, a lot of hope. I think that a lot of our friends look up to us, like we've been together for so long that they look up to us as a couple.
We look up
and
to you. You brought so much joy to us. Being able to spend time with you guys and learn about your story has been.
I appreciate that so much, really. So I refuse to buy into that. No, this isn't a fruitless marriage, and it is okay that I cannot procreate. I want it to be okay. I want our story, even if it's going to look different, I still want it to look beautiful. And so that's ultimately like where my brand was born from. So my brand is called From Barren to Brazen. And it's just that story of getting that like Barren diagnosis to living boldly and without shame, which is a definition of Brazen. But I actually only just found out though about the premature ovarian failure this summer. So as I started addressing my health, I went and I saw a different specialist, and she was like, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that you went into menopause at 31. She said, I really think that you have something else called premature ovarian failure. Never heard of it. I was like, POF? What is POF? And why do I have POF? Right? So premature ovarian failure is just like exactly what it sounds. Your ovaries sort of shut down prematurely at a young age. They stop producing eggs, and the period cycle stops. And it was a simple blood test. I went and I got additional blood work done. I did hit those markers. It was a confirmed diagnosis, but it was the grieving process started completely over for me this summer, because premature ovarian failure, while has a high probability of still being infertile, there were treatments that could have been attempted that could have maybe potentially changed the outcome, like hormone treatments and things like that. So it was almost like grieving it all over again, but from the vantage point of like, but I accepted this. I said I was going to work through this. So if anything, all this has done is like fuel my desire in raising awareness and helping other women that are at reproductive age, or helping other women that are choosing to be child-free by choice, or women who are child-free not by choice. Hey, we can still live beautiful, purpose-driven lives that are full of blessings, even if that blessing doesn't come in the form of a little person.
I think that one of the hardest parts for me of listening to your story, Marie, was obviously getting the initial diagnosis. To your point, you grieved the loss, right? It was like, okay, we're accepting that we're not having children, but then going and getting a second diagnosis and finding out that there potentially could have been something to do that could have potentially meant that you guys could have had a baby. Chris, how was that for you, going through that entire process? Not once, but twice, and we could have done something about it, but we didn't. Like, what was that like for you from the outside?
To be honest, I've always been the optimistic one in our relationship. I always see the silver lining even through the darkest clouds. And things happen for a reason. And again, always having these conversations, because especially work with friends are like, oh, or new friends, oh, you've been married, do you have any kids, are you gonna have any? Every new person you meet, you have to have that conversation over and over, and you kind of just get used to the idea. You're like, yeah, I'm not, no intent on having kids. You kind of cut the response a little shorter. But at the end of the day, what I feel is like, I did not marry Marie to have kids. I didn't see her as, oh, you know what? You're gonna maintain my house. You're gonna bear my kids. Actually, I see her like, I really like hanging out with you, and we should just always be together
We
all the
should go to
time.
prom.
Exactly. Right? Oh, listen, when we got to prom, all I was thinking of, I wonder if he's gonna play some Boys to Men or some Juvenile back in the day. She's over here planning our wedding. I'm just trying to, where can I get alcohol being 17 years old? But ultimately, what I always tell people, they're like, oh, you're not gonna have kids. How do you feel? I'm like, listen, I'm very selfish with my time. Maybe the universe knew that from even before my creation. So the fact that I get to do whatever I want and just take her with me, like that is a luxury that almost no one has. Especially, I'm one of four siblings, right? I have two older brothers and a younger sister. They all have multiple kids. And it almost feels like I try not to share, even though I'm a big oversharer, every time I just do some random adventure. Small example. Ashley, you're in Miami, so you know how big Art Basel. Michelle, you probably know as well. Art Basel is like madness here, right? So last year, working at the hotel, going through Art Basel, I finally get a day off.
And you work at
and
the hotel, just saying.
I
Like,
appreciate
you
it.
work at the hotel.
You ladies are more than welcome. Marie, you're there all the time, so those to you. But you're more than welcome. Come hang out.
What's the hotel?
The Faena Hotel on South Beach. But anyways, after that crazy week, I had a couple days off, and I'm a big football advocate, and I saw that the Miami Dolphins were going to be playing in San Francisco, where I also have family ties. And randomly, one of my brothers was like, we should go to the game, jokingly. And Marie's like, yeah, go to the game.
Bye.
So literally, on my 2 days off, I jumped on a plane, went across the country, watched the football game, hung out for the day in San Francisco, and then came back, then went to work. And then I realized, I was like, oh man, that was so much fun. We should do it again. And then my wife was like, oh, I want you to take me to go see Christmas lights down like in Coco Plum by the Grove. I was like, Christmas lights? I'll do you one better. The following weekend, I booked us tickets to go up to New York, and we were ice skating in Rockefeller Center. And it's like being able to have that kind of flexibility, that kind of freedom. You don't, not everyone's privileged to it.
Did you always have that mindset from the beginning of the diagnosis, being like, okay, and kind of like you said, finding that silver lining, or did it take you also a little bit of time and just some work to kind of get there?
It was like I was scared to tell him. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is me. This is a me problem, right? So I remember I approached him and I told them, like, this is what the doctor's saying. And I even gave him the out. I was like, look, I'm the one. I told him, like, I don't want to stop you from starting your family if that's what you choose that you ultimately want to do. What did I like? Why did I say that to this man? Mr. Chatterbox went dead silent for 2 days. He got so upset at me that I even insinuated like him walking away, that he literally did not talk to me for 2 days. And I love silence, Childfree, love silence, but not that kind of silence. And I was desperate to get him to even bombastic side-eyed me. It was like, please, okay, I'm sorry. I will never ever again insinuate that we don't have to be together because I'm barren. But no, from day one, he was like, no kids. Okay, cool. And then we get to go do all this dope stuff, and I don't have to have the responsibility of another person. And he even says to other people, like, I don't want to share her. And I'm like, that sounds so bad.
I was like, I don't want to just share you with anyone.
That sounds so terrible because like in your
No, it's so sweet. I think it's sweet.
The only thing I did tell her that, of course, I wanted to be a father, right? Who doesn't want the idea of having a little version of themselves running around? But ultimately, I told her the only thing that it's unfortunate is that she won't be able to experience what I experienced, because there won't be a small version of her. And that's like all that I would say I miss out on. I would love for her to see the way I see her, so she can kind of see herself. That makes sense. But outside of that, I told her, I'm like, listen, I want kids, but I want your kid.
Would you guys be open to adoption?
So that was the very next thing that I was like, okay, if we can't have our own children, certainly we could adopt. I even looked into the state of Florida foster care system, and I attended, it was like a Zoom call where they tell you the purpose of foster care is reunification, but there are opportunities to adopt out of the foster care system. And I was like, okay, loaded with my information, like the nerd that I am. I come at him with all my little info, and he heard me and he was like, if this is something you like really want to do, I'll consider it. And he's like, but I love our life and I'm okay with it staying this way. I think you even said, I'm okay with it being a party of two. And I was like,
those are like the easiest tables to get when you go out.
It's true.
Many tops are not that easy to reserve.
You do have to both be fully sure, right? If you want to adopt or go the foster care route, you can't just kind of like take in a kid and be like, you know what? This is actually really annoying, and I don't want to wake up to take you for school drop off. No, like you both have to be.
That can be late all the time.
You both have to be like fully sold on it, and I didn't see him fully sold. And again, we get all of these, let's call them luxuries. We have all of these luxuries in our life that other people don't, and we still have like our purposes and our goals and our desires, and we want that to be enough for us. But we both want that.
I do have a question for you guys. I don't know if this might be a little bit difficult to talk about, but I know that once you got that diagnosis, it must have been really hard on you. I know that you did want to be a mother. And so did you have, I'm sure that grief lasted a pretty long time. How is Chris supportive during that time for you? Because for him, it seemed, okay, we got this. This will be just us, and we're going to make this work. But for you, maybe it took a little bit longer to get there. So how is he supportive during that time that you were really feeling down about all of this?
It did take me a while to get there. I mean, again, like when you're a little girl, what's the first thing they hand you? A baby doll, right? To push around in a little stroller. So like you're at a very young age, it's becoming ingrained in you that one of the purposes that you're going to fill is to be a mom. And same thing being Catholic and Hispanic, it's just that continue feeding into that notion of you're going to get married, you're going to have children, and then your children are, in my mind, I mean, my grandchildren, and one of my grandsons was going to be a priest, and just like this like whole scenario played out in my head that didn't actually end up happening. So yeah, so it was still a grieving process. I mean, even still today, it's a grieving process. Come Christmas time at Macy's, you walk by all those cute little Ralph Lauren plaid outfits with the little frilly socks, and despite my ovaries not working, I still get that tug on my uterus of a gosh, I wish I had someone to stick in this little outfit. But it didn't happen, and I have two choices in this situation. I can either choose to be miserable about it, right, and bitter, and fail to see all of the blessings I have in my life, or I can just accept that that one thing didn't happen for me, but I have a beautiful marriage. I have a great job as an HR director. From Barren to Brazen is being born from this, which I'm hoping is going to help so many other women walk this child-free path together. And as far as support from him, I mean, he was just supported from day one. It was almost like he said, maybe God, the universe, nature just knew, because what are the odds a barren girl ends up with a guy that could care less about her reproductive abilities, right? So maybe this really, in the grand scheme of things, is kismet. Maybe this really was fate that we ended up together, because there are men that wouldn't be okay with that. You know, and like that's just the reality. There are men that would be like, well, I want that, and you're the one with the problem, not me. And in his case, he was just like, cool, more time for us.
Yeah. And we're so happy that that was his take on it. And I know that, Marie, you shared a little bit about sometimes the comments from family or friends really hasn't felt so supportive, and that could be totally unintentional, or sometimes it could be a little bit intentional, right? So I know that with those sorts of things sort of bubbling up sometimes, and you also talked about the importance of finding your tribe when maybe family or friends that you expected to be really supportive weren't there. And I think that this touches a little bit on you creating Barren to Brazen to sort of create that support network. But how have you navigated, and maybe both of you too, Chris, like how have you navigated being able to figure out like what is your go-to support system, and how do you navigate through some of those tough moments that Michelle was mentioning?
I think it's 10 times harder for her because naturally, I don't think for men they open up as easily, especially amongst friends. I do have a select few friends where I am just completely honest with, but I don't have to deal with the same pressures that she does because, again, they might say something, but they won't say it in front of me, and then she'll catch that comment even though it may be directed towards her or about her. So it's definitely different expectations, at least for myself. A lot of times, a few friends, I tell them like, oh yeah, I'm not going to have kids because this, that, and the other. But it's almost like, oh, okay. To be honest, my guy friends, they're not that deep. They're like, oh, okay, I understand. But then they go back to talking about goals and plans. But for my wife, she has a little more friends with depth and emotional intelligence. So it's easier on me than it is for her.
I will give something to my mom. I'm an only child. So for my mom, grandma was only going to happen from me. And when I got the diagnosis, my mom was like, so, okay. She's like, I'm going to be your baby then. You can take care of me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I'm like, well,
a good mom.
Yeah, that is sort of true. I do sort of, and now I spoil her. I take her out. I take her on trips. I buy her things. And she, obviously she's not my baby. She's still my mom. She'll still like break her finger and fix my eyebrows, right? Which I hate that she does that. Sorry. I hate that you do that. But no, my mom was very supportive, and my dad was like, my dad could care less. He was like, okay, good. He was like, one less annoying screaming kid I'd have to deal with. My dad is a very, just a very sardonic, dry person. So I could just imagine how awkward. He goes stiff as a board when you hug him. I could just imagine if we had kids with boogers running down their face.
He'd hold him out here.
That would have been like, where's the bottle of Lysol? But yeah, no, I didn't really feel that I got support from everybody that we're related to, and certainly not friends either. I started to notice as my friends started having kids, I started sort of being left out of things. And I remember I even asked, I was like, hey, you guys don't call. And we were like a group of friends. And they were like, yeah, we feel bad inviting you to play dates. Or like someone's always pregnant.
For the record, don't ever feel bad not inviting me to a kid's.
No, but
I will send a better gift if I didn't get an invitation.
They were like, we feel bad to bring you into an environment where there's so many babies or another pregnancy announcement or so many kids, and you don't have any, and we don't want to make you feel bad. And I was like, it's making me feel bad that you guys are excluding me, because just because I don't have a pregnancy announcement doesn't mean I can't be happy for yours. And just because I don't have kids to do birthday parties for doesn't mean that I won't throw down and help you arts and crafts.
I think that's a testament to who you are, though, because I have heard from the other side of things where women do not like being around other women with kids when they can't have them. So I feel like that's a testament to who you are, and almost it's good to make that known. You are happier being invited to these things instead of that.
I feel that might be just people or women probably projecting their insecurities. For example, for me, when I have a chance to hang around my nephews or any kids, I enjoy that because that is zero liability. Let's go get some cotton candy. Let's get candy. Let's all hype up. So every time around my nephews, it's like, oh, what do you want to do? Homework? Yeah. We can wait till you're back with your parents to do that. Let's go to the pool. Let's go to the park.
You got to be the cool uncle.
I mean, I don't have to be.
You are, yeah.
So it's almost like, oh, so I get this free trial to have fun with these kids, and then they get sick or they need a diaper change. Go back to your parents. Where's the downside in that?
Well, for me, I have a little bit of a different perspective. It's that when you wanted to nurture, but you weren't able to have a child to nurture. It is my honor. It is a blessing to be able to nurture my friends' children. It takes a village to raise a child, hands down. And it's an honor to be a part of my friend's village. Whether that be because like you're starting to lose it a little bit, and like you're right there, and you're like, okay, it's Dia time. We're gonna go for ice cream before your mom pops your head off. You know, like take them in that moment, but also just celebrating the milestones in the children's lives too. Honestly, it fills my heart to know that okay, I'm not a mom, but I'm still the aunt. And I'm still pouring into these children and I'm still loving on them and ultimately being a sister to my friends who have children. And it drives me bananas how society wants to pit child-free women against women with children. We could all just come together and support each other. If women with children could support their child-free friends and be like, look, whether you chose this lifestyle or not, I got your back, girl. Your life is still going to be beautiful. Women would rule the world. Honestly, if we would come together and support each other and work as one, honestly.
Do you feel like when you told this to your friends who maybe, were excluding you in the beginning, when you had that conversation, did they have an aha moment where they're like, oh, okay, and started including you more, or was it still the
No,
same?
they felt bad, but they still felt awkward having me around. And like, look, I don't have to be the elephant.
Those aren't meant to be your friends.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have to be the elephant in the room if my presence makes you uncomfortable because I was still sort of dealing with the infertility and all of the emotional things that was coming out of
He's
that.
right. Those bitches are insecure.
It could also be like maybe they're just jealous. Maybe they don't like that you go with sexy fish on a Tuesday night while they're making mac and cheese.
Totally.
Like,
You and your husband are grabbing last minute flights to go to New York and they're stuck home with their children. I agree. It's not acceptable. And I'm so happy, Marie, that you have the wherewithal to be like, okay, those aren't my people. And hopefully in starting Barren to Brazen, that it feels like also, Marie, like you're building this community of women that like maybe to Michelle's point, this is a group of women that are different because they're going to be open to, okay, do we want it? Like being able to be open, like we want to be around people with children, or maybe like we don't, right? And you could offer all of these women that feel all these different ways this one community where there's nobody better to understand than you guys for each other.
Well, that's ultimately my hope in creating the community, and also maybe in my mind, right? Okay, we're going to meet other child-free women and we're going to talk child-free by choice or not. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, we're still living the exact same life. Maybe yours is going to come with some emotional baggage if it was not by choice, but we're all walking the same walk and we can walk it together. And I've made some great child-free friends. Like my bestie right now is child-free, and we have so much fun, like romanticizing life, celebrating Summerween, and now we're like planning our fall luncheon, but also meeting other child-free couples has been amazing. I was recently talking to somebody who was child-free, and she was like, we'd love to have other child-free friends. And I'm like, okay, I think there's something really cool here in the child-free couples getting the dinks, dual income, no kids, getting together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is a whole movement. So are you inviting Barren to Brazen isn't just for women who are child-free, not by choice. It's actually a community also for people who are just child-free by choice. How do you foresee women that are child-free by choice being able to sort of connect with women that are child-free by not their choice?
So I think that's a great question, but one that I was recently asked, and I even was sort of left flabbergasted. I was like, oh, what's the difference between me and someone who's child-free by choice? What led us to the lifestyle? But we live the exact same lifestyle. We wake up without another person to be responsible for another person, and we get to choose to do whatever we want with our time and set our goals. And there's no difference in the actual lifestyle itself. What led you there? 100%. But I'm making an active choice to stay child free, even though I'm child free not by choice. I can adopt, I can foster, I can take on 14 cats and dogs. There are ways that I could become a mom, but I'm still, even though infertile, making an active choice to stay child free, which means I am no different than the girl that was like, not for me, right? Her and I are the same. And there's no reason why we should differentiate amongst each other. We're in this together, and we're going to enjoy our disposable income, and we're going to reach our goals, and we're going to live purpose-driven lives, and we're going to go out the same way too, without children. So to me, there's no difference other than what led you there. That's why I called it From Barren to Brazen, because I remember I Googled synonyms for being child-free, and the words that came up in the dictionary online, I screenshotted it because the words that came up were awful, worthless, waste. I'm telling you, I could even send you the screenshot. So barren was one of the words that came up, and I was just like, well, ouch, I don't really want anyone to describe my life that way. And then I was like, and then I'm like, well, what does it mean to live? Yes, I could choose to have shame around my infertility, or you know what, I'm just gonna wear it like the scarlet letter, whatever. Barren, hi, you know. So then I was like, I'm gonna go from that word to a kick-ass word. And that's where brazen came. It meant, again, to live boldly and without shame. And I was like, yeah,
I love the
your girl
name.
might be barren, but she's also brazen.
Yeah, it's great.
And
Super
it's coded
creative.
in us. I mean, you think about it, everything, right? We're raised, to your point, we're handed baby dolls and told to play with the pretend kitchens and the pretend houses. And it's in everything. It's in Judaism, it's in Christianity, that women are on this world, on this earth, to have babies.
And we give couples this notion of, you're gonna get married, you're gonna buy the white picket fence that you can't really afford, so you're always gonna be pinching, trying to figure out how you're going to pay your mortgage. And then you're going to send your kids to really nice college. So the boat and the RV are going to have to wait until you're like older and retired.
Except for you guys.
Or you can live our lifestyle and
use someone else's boat.
And you can have all of those things, or it can look completely different. You don't need a white picket fence. Like right now we're renting because Fayena's going to open a hotel in New York City. And my husband wants to go open that hotel. And Fayena's going to open in Dubai and Sao Paulo and all these places. And my husband's like, hey, are you cool with us traveling to go open hotels? And I was like, me? Forced to go to Dubai? What a sacrifice.
We need a follow-up episode
from Dubai.
Yes, I got you. But I will happily come back on. We will do an assessment, a marriage license assessment. We will do a podcast assessment 5 years later. Where are they now? Does Crystal have hair? Is Marie gray? Stay tuned.
I love that. So as far as like, just as we're wrapping up, I just have a couple questions left. What advice would you give to couples going through fertility struggles, like maybe some of them that are like in the thick of it, especially when it comes to maintaining intimacy and communication with each other through that process?
And I would add, Chris, how to be a supportive husband through that, because I feel like it tends to weigh heavier on women for the most part. So how you can be a supportive husband also through that.
I would say to women that are dealing with infertility, don't be ashamed. This is not, yes, it's hard, and yes, it's gonna change a lot of what you thought how things would look, but it's not a death sentence. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel guilty. You didn't do anything that led you to being in this situation. Now, if you choose to go the infertility treatment route, there are some great resources and some great organizations that lend financial support and emotional support through that process. Find your tribe, find your friends. Like, I am one of those people for my IVF friends. Like, okay, you're going through the shots, girl, what do you need? A pint of ice cream, a hug, I will drive you to that appointment for retrieval, whatever. Like, find your tribe, your friends that are gonna like really support you through that. And if ultimately it's not successful, or if ultimately you choose to accept that infertility diagnosis, you're not alone. There are other women like you that are out here that want to form little families that'll, you know, like, we will have each other's backs. We will be each other's support systems. And then I think the other piece of advice I would give, and you touched on something really important, which is intimacy. Like, I'm not going to lie, intimacy does sort of get affected when you're dealing with infertility and you're like either oh my God, okay, I'm ovulating and the temperature's right and we gotta go right now. And you're like, okay, that's an interesting way to start things. But like, try not to put that level of pressure on yourself, because I remember I did, and it zapped the fun out of being intimate. It took all of the playfulness out of it too. But if you do come out on the other side, I will say one thing: when you know you can't get pregnant,
No
it
contraception.
definitely opens you up for more playtime. I mean, you're just sort of like, well then, hello, sir. I will sort of give that sort of plus in the process. You're like, okay, well, I don't got to worry about anything. So, wow.
We don't have to lock any doors. We don't need doors.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like, ultimately, you're not alone. Find your people, ask for help, go see specialists, but just know that like, there are other people going through the same thing. You're not the only one, and you are seen and you are heard, and most importantly, you are loved.
Chris, do you have anything that you can add?
Yeah, just to answer Michelle's question, I think guys naturally have a tendency to try to fix everything and want to have answers. And I had to learn how to kind of take a step back and not let Marie take this journey on herself, but she has to go to her own appointments and have her own consultations with her doctors. And the best advice I can give is just be ready whenever your partner is or your wife is ready to have that conversation, to be as much as you can listen without responding, because a lot of times people don't need answers. They just need someone to hear them out. And we had already had the conversation of kids or no kids is not an equation that basically is part of my marriage. Like, I married you so I can be with you. So always wanting to have the answers and try to, like, if she's feeling down, sometimes you have to let her go through that emotion so it can really just conclude. Because if I'm always trying to uplift her and like, no, you shouldn't feel that way, and try to invalidate how she feels, that usually can make things worse before they make it better.
And you tend to feel patronized. No, but it's okay. Well, what does it matter? You're fine, right? But I'm not fine in this moment. In this moment, I'm hurt. Or in this moment, I saw something that made me feel like, why didn't I get that? And even though I spend, let's say, 85% of the time okay, there's still a certain percentage, especially I would say like around the holidays, where the matching family pajamas and the hot chocolate and the s'mores nights and things, like, yes, it's not that we can't have that, and we actually do. We do the adult version of it,
the sugar-free version.
But there are still certain moments where I'm like, man, he would have been a great dad. Or I see a husband and I'm just like, he would have been a wonderful father. Or like, ultimately, I think I would have been a great mom. But it's okay that it didn't happen. But in those moments, you really don't want someone to come tell you, get over it, you know? You just want to be like, you know what? Yeah, I am sorry that that happened to you. And I'm just going to sit here, shoulder to shoulder is what we call it. I'm going to sit here with you shoulder to shoulder until you feel better.
Listen, that was so special. Thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Thank you for having us.
No, thank you for having us.
And you guys are so supportive of each other, and it's so nice to see that.
Hopefully it keeps on after the recording stuff. Someone tends to get a little antsy when she hasn't ate.
And speaking of eating, I am in the process of preparing for your viewers my low-carb lasagna recipe. So do be on the lookout for that. Everybody who's on a diet, I am using hearts of palm in place of the pasta. So hopefully this will inspire all of you to have your love and pasta night, but healthy version.
I love that. Check out the show notes for Marie and Chris's recipe for their gluten-free low-carb lasagna recipe. And we'll also be sharing more information about Barren to Brazen and where you can find out more about the resources that Marie has created and how you can follow her and be a part of her continued journey.
Great. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was another amazing episode of Love and Pasta.
Share your love story with us on Instagram, Pinterest, or TikTok at Pasta Night Club. We can't wait to see what you send, and we'd love to feature you on our next episode.
Okay, listen, if you're planning a wedding, you have to know about guest lists. It's like your own private social network for your big day, which is so cool. It keeps all of your guests connected in one spot. Honestly, it's so much better than just a wedding website. With guest lists, your guests can connect with each other, ask questions, and you can share real-time announcements and updates. There's also a shared photo album so everyone can upload their pictures after the event. My husband and I went to a destination wedding where they used guest lists, and it was so much fun. The couple built excitement before the weekend by posting local guides, recommendations, and cute photos of the two of them. And even though we didn't know many people going, we connected with other guests through the app. My husband even organized a golf day with some of them, and it was great because he didn't have to bother the bride and groom for people's contact info. I also loved seeing everyone's photos in the shared photo album after. It made the whole experience a lot more personal. If you're planning your wedding, go to the App Store and download Guest List now. Search Guest List Wedding App in the App Store or Google Play Store, or head to guestlist.app to learn more. You can also follow them on social media at Get Guest List.